It was late afternoon in a small dusty town off Route 66. The kind of place where the sky stretched wide and the streets stayed empty after sundown. The neon sign of Maggie's Diner flickered in the warm breeze. Its hum the only sound besides the soft country tune from an old jukebox inside. The bell above the door jingled softly as a young girl entered. Her steps uneven, one leg braced in steel, her hand gripping a small wooden cane. Her name was Emily. 16 years old, quiet, polite, and with a smile that could melt even the coldest heart. She loved coming to Maggie's because the old lady behind the counter, Maggie herself, always treated her like family. But that day, the warmth that usually filled the diner felt thin, replaced by an uneasy silence. As three boys from the local high school sat in a booth near the back. They were the kind of boys who never worked for anything but believed the world owed them everything. Their ringleader, Chase, tall, cruel, and with too much arrogance for his own good, noticed Emily limping toward the counter. "Hey, look, it's the robot girl," he sneered, elbowing his friends. They laughed, loud enough for everyone to hear. Maggie shot them a sharp glance. But Emily just lowered her eyes and sat down quietly, ordering her usual, grilled cheese and a chocolate milkshake. The laughter continued, cruel whispers floating through the air. Chase and his friends mimicked her walk, slapping their knees, shouting jokes that made the old couple at the corner booth look away in discomfort. "Don't mind them, sweetheart," Maggie whispered as she placed Emily's milkshake in front of her. "People like that are small inside." But before Emily could thank her, one of the boys stood up, swaggering over to her booth. "What's wrong, huh? Can't even walk straight? Maybe that cane's just for attention." Emily froze, her hand trembling on the table. The boy grabbed her milkshake, pretending to drink it, then dumped it over her notebook. The cold chocolate spread across the pages where she had been sketching dreams of becoming an artist. "Stop it," she shouted, her voice breaking. The diner went silent. Maggie hurried over, but Chase stepped between them. "Relax, Grandma. We're just having fun." And then, as if mocking her courage, he did the unthinkable, he slapped Emily's cheek. Not hard enough to break skin, but hard enough to break spirit. The sound echoed like thunder in that quiet diner. Emily's eyes filled with tears, her lip trembling as the entire room watched in shameful silence. The boys laughed and walked out, leaving behind a trail of cruelty that no one had dared to challenge. Maggie knelt beside Emily, her hands shaking as she held the girl's face. "Honey, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry," she whispered. Emily just nodded, wiped her tears, and forced a small smile. "It's okay, Miss Maggie. People like them don't last long being that mean." She gathered her soaked notebook, paid for her meal despite Maggie's protest, and left
quietly into the fading sun. An hour passed. The sun dipped below the desert hills, and the road outside glowed orange. The bell over the diner door jingled again, but this time it wasn't gentle. The door swung wide open, and in walked a dozen men and women in leather vests, their boots heavy, their jackets patched with a name that read Steel Serpents MC. The leader, Bear, stood 6'4" with a thick beard and eyes that saw everything. He walked to the counter, nodded at Maggie, and spoke in a deep rumble. "We heard something happened here." Maggie blinked, startled. I don't know what you mean." But Bear turned to the window where Emily's small notebook lay forgotten on a chair. The pages were stained, but inside there was a rough pencil drawing of motorcycles, lined up in front of Maggie's diner, each with wings drawn behind them. Bear picked it up gently. "This belonged to a girl? Walks with a brace?" Maggie nodded slowly. "Yes, sweet kid. Those boys. We know," Bear interrupted softly. "She's one of ours." The diner fell silent. He set the notebook on the counter, his massive hands trembling slightly. "Emily's dad used to ride with us before he passed. We promised we'd look after his little girl," the other bikers murmured among themselves, a low growl of anger building. Bear's second-in-command, Roxy, slammed her helmet on the table. They hit her? In public? Maggie nodded, her eyes moist. I tried to stop it. Nobody else said a word. Bear took a deep breath, his jaw tightening. Then it's time we remind this town what silence costs. He turned toward his crew. Mount up! The engines roared to life outside, loud enough to shake the windows. The people in the diner ran to the windows as a line of chrome and thunder rolled down. Main Street. The Bullies were still hanging out behind a gas station, laughing and scrolling on their phones when the sound reached them, deep, guttural and angry. Their laughter faded as 12 bikes circled around them like wolves closing in on prey. Bear dismounted, his boots crushing gravel beneath him. Chase took a nervous step back. What's this about? Bear's voice was calm but deadly. You laid hands on a disabled girl. My brother's daughter. That makes this our business. Chase tried to laugh. Man, we were just joking around. No joke, Bear said, stepping closer. No respect and no heart. The other bikers revved their engines in rhythm, the sound pounding like war drums. Bear didn't hit him. He didn't have to. Instead, he grabbed the boy's phone, snapped it in half, and tossed it to the ground. You're gonna do something for me, he said. You're gonna walk into Maggie's, apologize to that girl in front of everyone and make it right. You've got one chance to be a man instead of a coward. Don't waste it. The boys were terrified. And they did exactly as told. The whole town watched as they stumbled into Maggie's diner, where Emily, still sitting in a corner with her sketchbook, looked up in
confusion. Chase's voice shook as he spoke. I'm sorry, he muttered. For everything. I shouldn't have touched you. Emily looked at him. Calm and composed, then smiled faintly. You don't have to be sorry to me, she said softly. Be sorry to yourself for letting hate make you small. The diner fell silent again. But this time the silence was filled with something different, shame. And maybe a hint of change. Bear stood outside, watching through the window, then turned to leave. As the engine started again, Emily ran to the door. Wait, she called out. Bear looked back. Thank you. For standing up for me. He smiled beneath his beard. No, kiddo. You stood up for yourself. We just reminded them that real strength doesn't come from fists. It comes from courage. He handed her a small patch that read, Steel Serpent's family. Your dad would be proud. She clutched it to her chest, tears shining in her eyes. The bikes roared away into the night, leaving behind a trail of thunder and justice. That diner became a different place after that day. People stopped looking away when they saw cruelty. Maggie hung Emily's drawing, now dry and framed, behind the counter with a note that read, Kindness is stronger than fear. As for Emily, she grew into a confident young woman. Her art inspiring thousands online. And sometimes, when the engines of the Steel Serpents echoed through the town, she'd smile, knowing her guardian angels still rode those dusty roads, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. So if you ever feel alone, remember this: kindness, courage, and unity can silence cruelty louder than any engine ever could. And hey, if this story touched your heart, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Because we tell stories that remind the world there's still good out there, sometimes. It just rides in on two wheels.